Yeah, so we're live. Um, the first thing says begin with a prayer. So does anyone want to start to say the prayer?
I can.
Okay.
Our Father in heaven, we're very grateful for this opportunity we have to continue our education. And we are grateful that we have such a participatory group. We pray that we will be able to feel of thy spirit always and as we need it. And we say these things in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. Thank you.
Okay, so it says provided a synopsis for the case. It says the case describes a dilemma of a marketing manager, Thomas Green, who, after being rapidly promoted to his new position, is harshly criticized by his boss. Green and his boss disagree on work styles and market projections. Green believes the sales goals set by the boss are based on creative accounting and grossly overstated in the current market environment. A mood of silent conflict develops between Green and his boss. Green is concerned that his boss is building a case to fire him. Green's situation is one which his failure to adapt to his work style and fully understand the demands and boundaries of his new position may lead to his discharge. Okay, so discussion questions. What are the key issues that we see in this case?
I feel like we're seeing the same thing we see on a lot of the cases,
Mm-hmm.
that there's a lack of communication. There are assumptions over what's expected versus what's told to each other.
Yeah.
But, you know, when you take a chance on a promotion when it's not something, what was the lady's last name? Mc something, I can't remember. McDonald.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. When she was talking about, you know, she and said, you have no management experience.
Uh-huh.
Or things along that line. And so I think that she shouldn't have been surprised.
Yeah.
With the option. I don't know. I'm mumbling today.
That makes sense. So obviously it's just the key issues with the conflict, and they didn't communicate. It says if you were Shannon McDonald, would you have hired Thomas Green? Why or why not?
I would have.
Go ahead.
You go.
So I was going to say, I think that Thomas Green I think he was a good hire. There's a couple things about him that were mostly his communication and his work style. He was more independent, and they were used to a certain way things were done, and he kind of changed it. It's not necessarily they were bad, but the people around him didn't. I don't know. They just didn't like it. They didn't mesh with him.
I agree. I would have hired him as well. I think he was a good hire. But his lack of experience is showing. And the lack of, he didn't seem to feel like he needed to do the marketing graphs or provide the data. He sounded like a talker.
Mm-hmm.
And, providing the things that you need to prove to a company that what you're selling is valuable. And so I think it was a good hire. I just think he needs some humility and willingness to learn from his supervisor.
Uh-huh.
I agree. I would have hired him. The only difference is I agree with you guys. I would have cultivated him more.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you're taking like I was trying to say before, I think I may have found my words, you guys. It's very exciting. But I think that if he had been cultivated and mentored, not just plopped in the role and expected to know everything, that would have been okay. But he did have some negatives. Like you said, Lucy, he wasn't taking the initiative. Now, whether that was an unrecognized expectation or not, he still didn't do it. And so I just don't like the thought, and maybe it's just because I am lucky and I don't have this, but I like to know where I stand with my bosses. And I feel like they didn't do a whole lot of talking.
Yeah.
He just complained. They complained about each other, basically.
Okay. No, I agree with that. Just they didn't communicate. The next things we're talking about is describing Frank Davis and then Thomas Green. So Frank Davis, the thing that I didn't like about him is he didn't like Thomas Green since day one. He didn't want to promote him. He didn't even really know him. He just wouldn't have been his first choice. So I think that was a bad start. But Frank Davis was really qualified. He had an MBA. He had a lot of experience. So I think therefore he does have value because of that. He's been there so long and he's smart.
Oh, yeah.
I think there might have been some frustration on Davis's part as he was told that he was going to be the one that was going to do the hiring for his former position, and then all of a sudden Thomas walks in and he's got that position. So I think that might have rubbed him wrong a little bit. And then, I mean, that was quite a jump that Thomas or Green took, taking that position. So
I think that I have to wonder, do you remember in the last case study where, or maybe it wasn't the last one, but it was when we were reading about the interviews about that one company who had to quickly fill a star?
Yeah.
He went to the interim person and explained to them, hey, P.S., we're going to do this. Well, that McDonald lady should have gone to Frank and said, hey, we found some people and he's going to be hired. I feel like maybe Frank, yeah, he does have a grudge against him. And I don't think it's necessarily him. It's the concept of him just showing up.
Mm-hmm.
But I wonder if he'd been talked to. Like if they talked to him and told him, hey, we're hiring this guy. Sorry for any issues that comes up.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Yeah. So yeah, like as far as like the grudge, I agree with that. Describe Thomas Green. Pretty much, he just kind of he was the salesman, pretty much. So he was enthusiastic, and he had things that he did about him, but I think his ego kind of got in the way. He could have made a couple short little tweaks with how he acted and treated other people in his communication, and he would have been fine. But he doesn't. I don't feel like he was a very good team player.
No.
Yeah, not a good team player, definitely.
And that's kind of, I mean, that in itself describes him. How do they actually? Wait, go ahead.
I struggle because I feel like none of his suggestions were constructive. Like none of his criticisms had any options of this is how you can improve on both sides.
Uh-huh.
When he started, he hadn't been in the role, and obviously Frank had. Frank should have taken him under his wing, and we know why he didn't. But Frank should have sought not Frank. Now I got him all confused. Thomas Green, right?
Yeah.
He should have sought out the help. He shouldn't have just assumed he knew what was going on in the role.
Yeah.
Now, were the review was after Thomas had kind of confronted Davis in the meeting, right? The review happened after that. If I remember right, their meeting happened after. So I think it just makes me wonder, there was just that underlying tension for several experiences they've had with right off the get-go. I don't know, that's just standing out to me. I think it shows Thomas's lack of experience that he would, there's a time and a place to disagree with someone. I don't know if in the middle of a planning meeting, the way that he did it.
Yeah, it was kind of naive, and
It was naive of him.
yeah, I agree. And then how he kind of disagreed with his marketing projections.
Yes.
He was just kind of smug about it, and I didn't like how he went about it.
Mhm.
It says who is mostly at fault for the situation. I think they both take the fault, but I kind of put more fault on Thomas Green over Frank. Obviously, Frank's at fault too, but it's kind of like I said, it's just his ego in general. I don't know what you guys think.
I feel it was Thomas's fault ultimately as well.
Uh-huh.
Agreed. Frank wasn't innocent in it. He should have been more hands-on. But I feel like Frank, knowing he was going in with the concerns that were shared to him, he could have sought out training. He could have sought out advice. When you go into a role, especially if it was vacated by someone who's still at the company, you should talk to them to find out what they found helpful and what the best thing was. But I feel like ultimately it was on him, because when a customer wants something specifically, you don't shy away from it. You do what they need you to do.
Mm-hmm.
And he was, in my opinion, he was wasting money if he had to go travel out to clients to talk to them about the ideas. And that should have been approved upon.
Yeah. One thing that I've mentioned in my write-up is that I think that this situation kind of reflects poorly upon Frank, because he should have been the leader in the situation, and a good leader can diffuse. I mean, obviously they're not going to fix everything, but they could definitely help out and make the situation better by talking and figuring out a different style to do things, instead of just kind of going to the management and complaining kind of thing.
Mm-hmm. It just sounds like they're both new in their respective positions, and they're going to have to try to figure out how to work together. But Davis definitely, or not Davis, Thomas Green has the position due to his lack of experience that he definitely needs to take the learner position.
Mm-hmm.
Wait, did we all just agree on it?
We all agreed.
Huh.
Oh, look at that.
Fascinating. I knew it would happen eventually.
Yeah. It says, how does power and office politics come into play in this situation?
Mm-hmm. I think Thomas got a little bit of pride in him for getting this position and trying to make his own way instead of being more accommodating and being more of the student. And I see that as pride and power getting in the way.
Uh-huh.
I also feel like it's just him trying to prove himself,
Mm-hmm.
because he may not have meant it in a pride perspective, but I think power came out on Frank's side when he spoke that he begrudgingly had to accept him as an employee because his boss hired him.
Right.
And he sort of acted a little prideful and powerful there when he's like, I should have been able to hire my own person.
Yeah.
He should have had that control.
True.
Okay, Jimmy, I have to ask you a question. Are you in
Yeah.
a different place this week?
I am. So I'm at my work.
Oh, okay, because I'm like, I don't see the lion.
Yeah, I'm usually, because there's offices in here that I use, and next door there's
Oh, okay. Okay, that makes sense. Sorry, I just noticed the painting behind you today.
That's funny. So now it wants us to talk about their conflict styles, and there's 4 on here that it gives. So one of the conflict is competition between them. That's what it says here. And it's basically that they're uncooperative, and that's kind of the ego thing that we discussed. And the next is compromise. So I mean, you guys have mentioned before that kind of because of their ego and pride, they're kind of unwilling to compromise. And then what else have you guys did you notice as far as their conflicts?
They both pretend they don't exist to each other.
Yeah, that's a good point.
So I mean, that doesn't help as far as communicating it or working in a team. So avoiding.
Well, and if you think about it, in a review, Frank is forced to talk to Thomas about it. Because that's the point of it. So the fact that they don't really talk or interact at all is proof that they're avoiding each other.
Yeah.
Right.
So what do you think that should happen from here as far as dealing with the situation?
I think some training needs to take place. And a chance should be given as long as the expectations are outlined properly.
Yeah.
I think, McDonald's is going to hear Green's experience, and then they definitely need to give him some time to show if he's willing to adjust and accommodate and learn. But I definitely think training and a lot more communication between Davis and Green needs to be promoted.
Mm-hmm. So I think that Frank should take the lead in this, maybe drop his ego, and then I also think because of the big boss McDonald, I think she should kind of be the mediator in it and just kind of figure it out together. I don't think the situation has gone beyond being saved. I think it mentions in here. Do we think it's salvageable at this point? I think it is.
Yeah, I think it is as well. And if they want to really start it out right, knowing that both of them have frustrations and complaints, maybe they need to get McDonald involved and have a round table where they discuss the issues.
Mm-hmm.
And find out what's needed, and she can do that separately and not have everybody together. But at this point, since she's the one who's finding out about all of this, she needs to be involved.
Yeah. So it says, what can they do to repair situation? We just talked about that. So it says, how can managing up be applied at work?
Say that one more time.
So it's kind of phrased weird, but it says, how can managing up be applied at work?
I'm not sure what they mean by that.
No, I think what they're trying to say is management. So it's saying that maybe Thomas Green has some type of a responsibility to fix the situation, maybe, and not just rely on the manager to do it. But he, as a maybe lower in the ranks, could still contribute, and that would show his leadership skills, I guess. That's kind of
okay.
It says, how do office politics come into play in many organizations? I think it's huge, obviously.
Yeah, it plays into it every single day.
Mm-hmm. And it says, how can someone be proactive in managing office politics, power, and conflicts? For me, I just think it comes down to attitude and being humble. So those two things in themselves are huge.
For me, I think just owning your mistakes. Like at my job, I notice a lot of people have a hard time with that. Like nobody wants to like the blame just keeps going and going and going. I think just taking your responsibility, I think that helps a lot with managing office politics, gossiping. It's just being able to know that you made a mistake and take it and make it right.
Uh-huh.
I've experienced that at work a lot.
Cool. So it mentions what connections are made between this case and the gospel. I mean, I think that there's some type of politics always exists, like in church, and then there's always people on power trips,
Yes.
conflicts. So I mean, it does apply.
I think, when there's new callings and you get a new leader, you keep the same position, you get a new leader, and just trying to adjust to that person's way of delegating and getting things done. You have to be able to be flexible with whoever you're with and still get the job done. I see that a lot in church when there's a new leader called in a position.
Oh my gosh, it's everywhere, isn't it, Lucy?
Yes.
Even though the ordinances are the same, I sometimes find temples different.
Oh my goodness.
And it catches me off guard. I was an ordinance worker in Boston for fully 4 years. And when I came out to Utah, I'm in Arizona, not Utah. Told you, long week. When I went to Mesa the first time, I was really thrown off by, not that they were acting irreverent, but they weren't acting the way that we presented ourselves in Boston.
Yeah.
Yep. I work in the temple on Saturday nights in the president's office under 4 separate different recorders. Every Saturday night it's different recorders, and they all do the same position, completely different. And so I just modify every week the same thing, but I do it the way they want because that's just the way it is. And neither of them
awesome.
But that is the way it is. I just go on autopilot. So.
What temple?
Provo City Temple.
The city center one?
Yeah, the city center temple.
Oh, so jealous. I haven't been there yet.
It's beautiful. I can see it from my house. I live right by it.
That's so cool.
Do you live east or west?
I live east. Yeah, I'm right
I
by you.
lived on 4th North 100 East when I lived in Provo.
Very nice.
So I was close down there.
It's
I love it.
pretty there. I love it. So it gives kind of the ending conclusion of the case. I'll just read it. It says, after McDonald's February 5th, 2008 email, Green took offense against his boss. He crafted a series of memorandums, emails, reports, and projections that exposed inaccuracies and creative forecasting. This data enabled Green to build some alliances with other marketing personnel who used the data to ultimately side with him. On April 4th, it was announced that Frank Davis was being moved literally to an undefined special project. However, Green's tactics were seen as overly brutal by many in the company. Although he won the battle against his boss, his career was irreparably harmed. McDonald distanced herself from him, and in July of 2008, Green announced that he was resigning from his position to pursue full-time studies for an MBA.
Not good.
But yeah, I mean,
so
in the end, they were both in the wrong, but he was just
wow
about it the right way, I guess.
That was dirty.
Yeah.
He played dirty. I don't like that at all.
No way. Too much.
He deserves everything he got from it.
Yep, not good.
Cool. So, is there any last comments about the case at all?
I don't have any this week.
Cool.
I guess
So-
I'm not surprised that that happened with Thomas because he had a pretty big chip from the get-go, so it's not that shocking.
Yeah, I agree. Cool. So, if that's it, we'll just end it there. I'll submit this to the discussion board.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Cool.
Have a
thanks,
great
guys.
week.
Bye.
Yeah.